Most of us spend hours inside aircraft without ever being told exactly how they work. So our minds fill the gaps with stories. Some of those stories are comforting, a lot of them are frightening, and a surprising number are simply wrong. Let's start with one almost everyone has felt. Myth number 1. Planes can fall out of the sky in turbulence. From a passenger seat, turbulence does not feel like air. It feels like the plane has hit something, or fallen into something. The wings flex, the bins rattle, your stomach lifts, and for a second, your brain is certain the aircraft is about to come apart. But here's what's actually happening. The plane has not hit anything. It is moving through disturbed air, the same way a car moves over a rough road. The shaking is uncomfortable, but the aircraft is nowhere near its limits. Those flexing wings are not a warning sign. They are designed to bend. A wing that absorbs movement is doing its job. A wing that stayed perfectly rigid would be far more worrying. The honest risk in turbulence is real, but it is not the airframe. It is your body, loose inside the cabin if you are not wearing a seatbelt. So, the plane is not the fragile part of this story. You are. Myth number 2. You can open a plane door mid-flight. This one comes straight from the movies. Someone reaches for the handle and the whole cabin is suddenly in danger. In reality, at cruising altitude, no passenger is opening that door. Not because they are too weak, because of physics. The cabin is pressurized. The air inside is pushing outward against every surface, including the door. And most aircraft doors are what's called plug doors. They are slightly larger than the hole they sit in, so the pressure pushes them firmly into the frame, sealing them tighter the higher you go. At altitude, that pressure is holding the door shut with a force of thousands of kilograms. A person simply cannot overcome it. The handle will not move in any meaningful way, no matter how hard someone pulls. So the dramatic mid-flight door scene is exactly that, a scene. Myth number 3. If both engines fail, the plane drops instantly. This is the nightmare version of flying. The engines go quiet, and people imagine the aircraft tipping nose down and plummeting. But that is not what happens. A plane without thrust does not fall. It glides. Air is still moving over the wings, the controls still work, and the pilots can still fly it. The aircraft simply trades height for distance, descending on a controlled path instead of dropping. And from cruising altitude, that path can cover a long way. Enough, often, to reach an airport, attempt to restart the engines, and prepare for landing. It has happened in real life. A fuel-starved airliner once glided to an island runway in the Azores. Another, after a bird strike, was put safely down on the Hudson River. Both engines failing is a serious emergency, but glider and falling rock are not the same thing. Myth number 4. The autopilot flies the whole plane by itself. People often imagine pilots switching on the autopilot, sitting back, and letting a computer do the entire flight. The autopilot is powerful, but it is closer to a very advanced cruise control than to a robot pilot. It holds a heading, it holds an altitude, it follows a route that pilots have programmed in. But it does not decide anything. It does exactly what it is told and nothing more. The pilots are the ones choosing the route, setting up the system, monitoring it constantly, and stepping in the moment something is not right. Weather changes, air traffic control gives new instructions, the flight needs adjusting, and a human makes that call. The autopilot reduces workload. It does not replace the people who understand what the aircraft should be doing. Myth number 5. Pilots do nothing during cruise. The cruise looks calm, the seatbelt sign is off, the cabin is quiet, and from the outside it can seem like the hard part is over. But quiet is not the same as idle. During cruise, the pilots are managing fuel and watching how it is burning compared to the plan. They are tracking the weather ahead and to the sides. They are talking to a series of air traffic controllers as the flight crosses different airspaces. They are checking systems, adjusting the route, and constantly keeping a mental list of where they would divert if they had to. It is the part of the flight where they get to think ahead instead of react. Cruise is not the pilots doing nothing. It is the pilots staying ahead of everything. Myth number 6. A lightning strike can bring down a plane. Lightning hitting an aircraft sounds catastrophic. A bright flash, a bang, and surely something must break. Here's the part that surprises people. Aircraft get struck by lightning regularly, and most of the time the passengers barely notice. The reason is in the design. The metal skin of the aircraft acts like a shell that carries the electrical charge around the outside and lets it exit again, usually from the wingtips or tail, without passing through the cabin or the critical systems inside. The fuel system is protected, the wiring is shielded, the structure is built and tested with lightning in mind. A strike might leave a small scorch mark for engineers to inspect later, but the aircraft is built to be the safest place to be when the sky is throwing electricity around. Myth number 7. A small hole in the window will suck everyone out. In films, a crack appears and the entire cabin is instantly emptied into the sky. The real version is far less dramatic. A small hole causes a leak, not a vacuum. Air rushes towards the gap and the cabin loses pressure, but it does not violently empty in a second. The smaller the hole, the slower it happens. The pilots respond by descending to a lower altitude where the air is breathable, and oxygen masks drop to cover the gap in between. The truly serious cases in history involved large structural failures, not tiny holes. Decompression is something crews train for and take seriously, but a small crack does not turn the cabin into a Hoover. Myth number 8. Plane toilets dump waste into the sky. The image is grim and completely wrong. Aircraft toilets use a sealed vacuum system that pulls waste into storage tanks on board. Those tanks are emptied by ground crews after landing into proper facilities. Nothing is released in flight by design. There is no button that opens the bottom of the plane. The myth survives because of something called blue ice. Very rarely, a leak in the external lavatory fitting lets a small amount of the blue disinfectant fluid escape, where it freezes at altitude and can fall as ice. But that is a rare fault that gets fixed. It is not the toilet working as intended. Myth number 9. Using your phone can make the plane crash. For years, the instruction to switch off your phone made it sound like your handset could literally bring it down an aircraft. It cannot, and there is no recorded case of a phone causing a crash. The rules exist for a more cautious reason. Phones constantly search for signal, and in large numbers there was a concern that they could create minor interference with sensitive communication and navigation equipment. There was also a separate, very practical issue. A phone at altitude pings many cell towers at once, which the ground networks were never designed for. That is why the guidance has relaxed into airplane mode, and why onboard Wi-Fi is now normal. The risk was always precautionary. It was never your text message reaching into the cockpit. Myth number 10. The safest seat is always at the back. This one feels like it should have a clean answer, and people repeat it with confidence. The truth is messier. When researchers have looked back at past accidents, some datasets suggest seats towards the rear did slightly better on average. But on average across past incidents is not the same as safest for your flight. Every accident is different. The forces, the angle, the type of failure, the part of the aircraft affected, all change which area happens to fare better. In some crashes, the front did better. In others, the wing area. In many, where you sat made no difference at all. There is no magic seat that is the safest in every scenario. The most useful safety habit is not the row number, it is the seat belt. Myth number 11. Planes dump fuel before every emergency landing. You have probably seen it in a film. An emergency is declared and the plane circles to dump fuel before landing. In reality, most aircraft cannot dump fuel at all. Fuel jettison is a feature mainly on larger long-haul aircraft because they take off heavy and might need to land long before they have burned that weight off. Smaller, short-haul jets, the kind most people fly on, usually do not have the system. So, how do they land heavy? They are designed to. Aircraft can perform an overweight landing when needed, and crews are trained for it. Where time allows, a plane might instead circle to burn fuel down. Dumping fuel is a specific tool for a specific aircraft and conditions. It is not a routine step before every emergency. Myth number 12. A bird strike is always catastrophic. After certain famous incidents, it can feel like any bird means disaster. But bird strikes are surprisingly common, and the vast majority cause little or no damage at all. Engines are tested for exactly this. Part of certifying a jet engine involves firing bird-sized masses into it to prove it can keep running or shut down safely without throwing debris everywhere. Airports actively manage wildlife to keep birds away from runways, which is where most strikes happen. The genuinely serious cases where multiple large birds knock out more than one engine at the worst possible moment are rare. That is exactly why they become famous. Bird strikes are taken seriously, especially near engines. But most are a minor event, not a catastrophe. Myth number 13. Oxygen masks are connected to giant oxygen tanks. When the masks drop, people picture a huge central tank feeding pure oxygen to every seat. That is usually not how it works. Many airliners do not store passenger oxygen as compressed gas at all. Instead, the panel above each row contains a chemical oxygen generator. When the masks deploy, a chemical reaction begins that produces oxygen directly. That is also why people sometimes notice a faint burning smell. It is normal, and it is not the plane being on fire. These generators run for a limited time, often somewhere around 12 to 15 minutes, and that is deliberate. It is not meant to last the whole flight. It is meant to last long enough for the pilots to bring the aircraft down to an altitude where everyone can breathe normally again. Myth number 14. The brace position is designed to kill you. This is one of the strangest myths out there. The claim is that airlines secretly want you in the brace position so you die faster, to save them money or to protect your dental records. It is a conspiracy theory, and it is wrong. The brace position exists to do the opposite. In a sudden impact, the danger is your body being thrown forward and your head and limbs hitting hard surfaces. Bracing prepositions you against the seat in front, reduces that violent movement, and protects your head and neck. It is studied, tested, and recommended by aviation safety authorities precisely because it improves your chances. The cabin crew are not preparing you to die. They are giving you the best possible position to survive. Myth number 15. Planes fly in straight lines on maps. Look at a flight tracker, and the route can seem bizarre. The plane curves north, swings over places that look like detours, and refuses to go into the obvious straight line. It is not lost, and it is not wasting fuel. The first reason is the shape of the Earth. The planet is a sphere, but most maps are flat. The genuinely shortest path between two distant points follows the curve of the globe, and when you draw that curve onto a flat map, it looks bent. Routes over the far north between continents are a classic example. Then come the other factors. Pilots ride the jet streams that save time and fuel. They avoid bad weather. They stay within permitted airspace. And on long ocean crossings, they deliberately route near suitable diversion airports, just in case. So the strange-looking line is usually the smart one. It only looks wrong because the map is lying to you about the shape of the world. Look back across all 15 myths, and a pattern appears. Almost every myth comes from the same place. Flying feels mysterious, so our brains fill the silence with the most dramatic story available. The door bursts open, the phone crashes the jet, the wing snaps, the toilet opens onto the sky. But the reality underneath is nearly always calmer than the myth. None of this means flying is magic, or that nothing ever goes wrong. It means that the parts that feel the most frightening are usually the parts that have been engineered, tested, regulated, and trained for the most. The fear tends to aim at the wrong thing. The reality is quieter and a lot more reassuring.